After taxiing to the run-up area, align the nose of your aircraft into the wind. Try to keep the propeller blast away from the other aircraft. Using a printed checklist from the aircraft manufacturer, make sure every item is checked and nothing is omitted. Whether you set the parking brake or hold the brakes with your feet, you should divide your attention between cockpit duties and outside the aircraft to make sure it doesn't start moving forward during the run-up. Make sure the cabin doors are closed and locked. Also, close and lock both windows. When you turn the control wheel to the right aileron will move up and the left aileron will move down. Conversely, turning the controls to the left will move the left aileron up and the right aileron down. To help you remember which aileron is up, place both hands on the control wheel and move it to the right. If you extend your thumbs, they will point to the aileron in the up position. Pulling back on the control wheel will cause the elevator to move up, and pushing forward on the control wheel will move the elevator down. To check the rudder for proper operation, depress the right rudder pedal and it will move the rudder to the right. Left rudder pedal pressure will cause the rudder to move to the left. Next, check and set your flight instruments. Set the altimeter to the current altimeter setting, or if the current setting is not available, adjust it to the field elevation. Check and adjust your attitude indicator to ensure the miniature aircraft is in a wings level position on the horizon bar. Set the heading indicator to the magnetic compass indication. Place the fuel selector valve to the fullest tank or to the both position, as recommended in the pilot's operating handbook. Now, set the elevator trim to the takeoff position. Smoothly advance the throttle to the appropriate RPM and adjust the mixture control as required for the field elevation, or as recommended in the pilot's operating handbook. If your pilot's operating handbook has an amplified procedures section, refer to the section on leaning the mixture for high-altitude operation and high field elevations. To check the magnetos, move the ignition switch first to the right position and note the RPM drop. Move the switch back to the both position and then move the ignition switch to the left position and note the RPM drop. Return the switch to the both position. Switching from both magnetos to the left or right magneto individually should cause the engine RPM to drop. In most cases, a drop of around 125 RPM is acceptable for individual magneto operation. However, the difference between the left and right magneto drop should not exceed 25 to 50 RPM, depending on manufacturer's recommendations. If you don't get a drop in RPM, it may be the result of a faulty magneto ground wire, and the aircraft should not be flown. Apply carburetor heat and check for a drop in RPM. Then return the carburetor heat control to the off position. In some geographical areas with high humidity or visible moisture, you can experience carburetor ice while taxiing. This may be noted by a larger initial drop in RPM followed by a slight increase in RPM. The initial drop may be accompanied by engine roughness, which should subside with the RPM increase. Check the suction gauge. It should be indicating between 4.5 and 5.4 inches of mercury. Now, check the ammeter. The ammeter shows the charging rate applied to the battery. If the alternator is not working or the electrical load exceeds the output of the alternator, the ammeter indicates the battery discharge rate. Reduce the power back to idle RPM and begin an avionics check. Check the transponder. For a VFR flight, you should use the code number of 1200 in your transponder. However, some tower-controlled airports have special local procedures and may assign a discrete code. Once you have confirmed the transponder code, check the communication and nav aid frequencies. quickly review the performance airspeeds and departure procedures and finish the checklist items. Of course, airspeeds and procedures will vary with aircraft. Correct procedures are those recommended in the pilot's operating handbook for your aircraft. Release the parking brake. Always check for other traffic before you leave the run-up area, including the final approach path, taxiways you may cross to get to the runway, and the runway itself. Remember, opposite direction traffic may be in effect. You should also check for traffic when departing a tower-controlled field.